Hello and thank you for joining us. Welcome back to the bridge. On our, it actually should say season 3, episode 2. Anyways, I've had quite an interesting morning. I'll take that out in just a second. And we have Dekshi, my uncle, Chief Phil Lane Jr., to talk about the water and what it means to be in right relation to the waters as well as to each other. And I'd like to give you a warm welcome, Dekshi, Chief Phil Lane.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Toshka. So glad to be here with you and Michael.
Good morning, Chief Phil Lane. It's always an honor to have you and to connect with you and be in your presence. I bow to you and I bow to your wisdom and what you're going to be bringing forward today.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael.
If you can start us off with a beautiful centering meditation or prayer.
Yes, that'll be great. Oten Kashla, Wakantaka, creator of the universe, most beloved one, all-powerful one, most kind one, most compassionate one, ever-forgiving one, most tender one, O ancient of days, O blessed beauty, O ever-abiding one, we call upon your holy power this beautiful day. And all those relatives who have passed on to the spiritual worlds beyond, to the other side camp. And all that is, we humble ourselves and give thanksgiving. And ask that we might be infused, might be inspired, might be filled with your holy power, your Holy Spirit. So we might be fully detached and severed from all save our beloved Creator. And we give respect and honor to all the tribes and nations to the east, from where comes the red sunrise, to the south, from where comes spring, all those tribes and nations, to the west, from where comes thunder, lightning, and rain. Thanksgiving to all those tribes and nations, to the north, from where comes the white snow. All those tribes and nations, we ask all to come together in unity and harmony and compassion and justice and truth. As one heart and one mind in many bodies. We give thanksgiving to our beloved Creator, but also the masculine elements of life. Help us to understand what it is to be a good grandfather, good father, a good son, a good grandson, good brother, good husband. And we ask at this time, Creator, that our relatives, that we all might end the abuse of women upon this Mother Earth, and all those injustices are committed through prejudice of any form, any kind, against any human being, anything. It causes us to feel better than or less than a human being, because we understand that our soul has no ethnicity, has no gender, has no divisions, but is in fact a reflection of the oneness of your holy, holy being. And we give thanksgiving this time to our beloved Mother Earth, all those beloved dimensions, feminine dimensions of ourselves. Especially, we honor our grandmothers and our mothers and our aunties and our friends and our daughters and nieces and granddaughters and all human beings, every human being. We might become and truly understand the prior unity and oneness of our human family. And particularly, Creator of all good things, we ask your inspiration that as we discuss this sacred gift of water, this sacred water is within all of us, And I'll close with this prayer I love for unity. O my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal unto them thy great purpose. May they follow in thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not to themselves, but guide their steps by the light of knowledge and cheer their hearts with your love. Verily, you are our helper and our Lord. Hallelujah. Chante washtelo. Shugmano he meyodo. Chinupasapa he meyodo. Hallelujah. Chante washte. Aho.
Aho. Thank you, Dekshi, for that. And as we know, and we've come to realize as a collective, as well as many of us individuals, that water is a driving force in nature, and it's the lifeblood of humanity. Our nations and economies, our well-being, and water represents life. And it's a symbol of purity, fertility, life in motion, and renewal. And it's what connects all of us together. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Michael, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was deeply touched by your words and the energy behind it, and especially today. I don't want to go much into politics, but with the inauguration of a new president in the United States, I think there was a lot of eyes have been onto Washington today globally, and I feel that it is time that we reconnect and reunite and create a vision for humanity that is of harmony and coherence and love and peace. And when I was listening to your words, I thought I wanted to hear some of those words in the inaugural speech today in Washington, but I didn't. But I'm glad that I heard them out of your mouth, and to bring them forward into the world. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's a time now that we all, as members of our human family, need to really deeply reflect on how each of us is going to proceed into the future. The elders tell us that when it comes time we leave this physical plane of time and space, we become, called the elders, become before those that help us to bring account of our lives. And if I say, well, I did this misstep, all it was KUMARA's fault, or it was Michael's fault, elders would say no. No one can condition our souls except our own self. That's part of the gift we have here in this physical plane of time and space. We have choices. We're given the right of choice. So it's our decision now. Do we continue the path we're on? Do we continue this unity and deepening partisan politics, adversarial partisan politics, or do we choose a path that the Creator has given us in our prophecies, in our sacred teachings of all faiths that teach love and compassion, and choose that path? And, you know, water is a perfect example, a perfect reflection of this purity that we need in our souls and our hearts so much. I mean, the fact is, literally, we're practically all of us is water. One thing, but also there's a physical dimension, but there's the spiritual qualities. You know, we can find in spiritual traditions everywhere where water is associated with new birth spiritually. You know, if you look into the holy books, sacred teachings of all religions around Mother Earth, plus the oral traditions that are given to us, for instance, for the Acheti-Shikoan, the sacred teachers of the White Buffalo Cathwoman. They all talk about love and respect for water. That water is life. And I can say that I remember when I first began to Sundance back in 1980. I was Sundancing with a really wonderful elder. His name was Pete Ketches. And I remember he liked to dance day and night for 2 days and 2 nights, day and night. And it would always be around a little over 100 degrees outside. So it was a little warm. And I remember that we had danced all night, all day, all night. We're coming to the final day in which they do the piercing and so forth to conclude the ceremony. And I remember Pete turned to us, he said, nephews, you understand now that water's medicine? Of course, when you go without water, you fast without food and water, especially in the hot sun. For myself, other people say, I got hungry because we haven't eaten food. Not for me. It was water. That's the one, water. Your tongue gets thick. Your lips start to crack. And it's that water, the water of life. And so it is medicine. It's medicine. It's sacred medicine. And it's heartbreaking when you think about it. That, for instance, during this COVID-19 challenge, while hundreds of billions of dollars, literally, flowed towards very, very few elite, 250 million of our beloved members of our human family went into extreme poverty. And extreme poverty includes no clean drinking water or water itself to drink. And we can see what's unfolding here, that as we move forward with this unbridled materialism, unbridled consumption of everything on our beloved mother, that water, and this has of course been not just in our prophecies, but it's been foretold by anybody who's doing any kind of thinking about this, that there will be and are happening battles and wars over water. Because your population very quickly without water is not going to be very pleased. This is the challenge. This is the time we're in right now. To really make a decision. Are we going to stand up and take that path that the Creator has so clearly outlined for us in the sacred prophecies? Or are we going to continue down this path of destruction and further disunity and further hunger and further a path that has no water for many people to drink, or water that's polluted? So that's how critical we are right now.
So let me ask you a question. Where do you think is the missing link? We all know, we all learned in school that we can't survive without water. Yet we are not treating it the way it deserves, with the reverence and the gratitude and the love that it needs to be treated. And so somewhere in our upbringing, and I'm simply speaking from perhaps a perspective of Western culture, because I believe people in Africa or in countries where there is a severe water shortage, they have a different relationship to water. I'm referencing to the Western world that is perhaps mainly responsible for the pollution of the waters and the contamination of our waterways, and where as individuals do you think is that broken link between the understanding of what it really is and the way we need to we need to connect with it?
Well, I think that it's like many things, including water. You know, we as a human family right now are so caught up in this very materialistic paradigm we're living in. You know, we're you know, it's instant gratification, and so we're not contemplating yet where we are and where we're going to be in 5 years, or 10 years, or 15 years. All the evidence is there. It's clear. It's clear. But from my perspective, we have this paralysis of will. This whether we are choosing not to do it, or we just simply don't even aware how to do it. We seem to be, for one thing, I believe it's this belief that it's our human nature to be adversarial. It's our nature as human beings. Therefore, you know, really, we can't change the nature, so we just got to go forward. And then there's that whole you know, we're so caught up in just survival at this point. For many families are dealing with this COVID-19, and we can say, yes, it's challenging for all the relatives in the United States or Canada, whatever. But just think of those relatives and the suffering they're going through in other places on Mother Earth. We don't have any of the things we have here. Now, maybe, by the way, maybe that's a blessing as well. But you know, I don't think poverty, where you don't have enough to eat, water to drink, I don't think that's how do I say, positive in any manner whatsoever. So I think it's really about us accepting the fact that each one of us are powerful beings. Each one of us is a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. Each one of us can make a difference. But you know, this society has marginalized us so much that we really, I don't know if we really understand truly, even though we read the Bible, or we read the Quran, or we read the Entrevistas, or we read the Mahabharata, all these different sacred books, or we hear the teachings, the white buffalo calf woman, whatever, that we're really understanding that we are made in the image of the Creator. We are a reflection of that holiness. That's who we are. And instead, you know, we can see from all this intergenerational trauma that's gone on from generation to generation. And so children who are so ready to learn, so ready to embrace what is shared with them by those older than them, they're trusting us. So are we as a children grow up, before we eat, are we talking about the water, how sacred it is, and how, you know, one of the things that many of our ceremonies are going to a traditional home to eat. The one thing, you begin with water. You know, you drink that water, you pray with the water. You know, when we have our Native American church meetings, before they close in the morning, so beautiful, a woman, but by the way, water in many of our ceremonies are associated with women, obviously. But they come and pray with the water. So I don't know if we have, in fact, and people can ask themselves the question who are listening in, how much are we really sharing with our children from the time they begin to understand how sacred this water is, how precious it is? And we know that the water as well reflects that which is around it. So there is such a thing as well as sacred water, water that hasn't been infused with the prayers and with the love and compassion of those who understand the dimension. And so there's a difference between drinking those kind of waters and those kind of waters that have been treated, you know, with disrespect. So I think even so children, that's one thing I think is important. Just like we should be able to, from the time as we begin to have children become into the learning stage, to learn about waging peace, not war, and really looking at this as well, and teaching at the foundation the understanding of the oneness of the human family, the oneness of the human family. But I like to add the prior unity of the oneness of the human family in all life, meaning that when this beginning began, you have different estimates, but billions of years ago, billions, that in that seed crystal, who we are was within that seed crystal, and we were at one with all life. That's what the indigenous worldview is, understanding that everything is interconnected. In fact, the first thing you say, "Mitakeapi," my relatives, that word is not just the human relatives, it's your relationship with everything. And I love this one song because I think it demonstrates this relationship. And it was passed on me many years ago, back in 1975. It's 45 years ago, by my dear Koda, George World War soldier. And the song goes like this: Wayankie, 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 Chanupa Kile, Wakayelo, Wayankie. So Wayankie is behold, calling upon the powers of the universe to behold this. Is when you're preparing your pipe. Behold this. The sacred pipe is holy. Sacred. What's it saying? It's saying the bowl, which represents the mineral people, water, all the mineral people, Mother Earth, that's sacred. And water has a power. It's a power of cohesion or unity. It flows through and it brings unity to our whole system, power and unity. Then you have the stem. The stem represents the plant relatives, and they have a spirit of growth. And so you have the mineral people, the power of cohesion and unity. And of course, it expresses itself in the plant relatives, plant kingdom, plant world, which another dimension is the spirit of growth the plant has. It's one with the mineral people. Then you have our animal relatives, which make up, on the stem of a pipe or in the bundle, you have representation. It might be porcupine quill done to make on the stem, or eagle feather, or horsehair, or whatever. But that's the animal people. The animal people contain the mineral people. The fundamental unity and strength comes from the water, comes from those few additional minerals that are put into the water. And the plant people, the spirit of growth. And of course, then you have the animal relatives. They have a power. That power is the power of the senses. And that's why we knew, when storms were coming, because the tympani of the eardrum is like a barometer. And as the pressure changes, little animals, birds or horses, they'll move a certain way. And if you're studying the world around you, you're studying the natural world, you understand and see all these messages, all these sharing going on about what's going on. We're not so caught up in ourselves that we realize that every leaf and rock literally is a doorway leading into the Ancient of Days, leading into the mysteries of our Creator. And so then we come to our human being. And that's symbolized in the pipe, is put together. We contain the mineral people, the sacredness of those. That's what gives us our basic unity, the calcium in our bones, our bone structure, and of course water through it all. And we have the spirit and power of growth as the plant people. In fact, they're our relatives. They breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. we breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. We live in a symbiotic relationship with our dear plant relatives. And then we come to the animal relatives. We have the spirit and power of the senses as they do. And so we have that relationship, and they have many things to teach us, many things. But then we have what I want to call soul. We have a soul that transcends time and space. I would say that the animal relatives, they have a soul. It's a collective soul. You know, that collective soul they have, that as an animal is born into this physical plane of time and space, they share together this soul. We can see it when you know, ducks or geese are flying. It's one, and they'll be going like this, and then one will come over and take over the front. But they're one. There's a morphic field connecting them together, and so they are also eternal as a collective soul, I'd call it. But then we have that soul, our soul. So if we look again, mineral, plant, animal, human, and then there's your pipe. You know, so it says again, Wayankie, Chinupa, Kile, Wakayalo, Wayankie. This pipe is sacred. What's saying really is all life sacred. We're sacred. The mineral, the plant, the animal, all is sacred. And that fundamental understanding of the oneness of all life, and the hurt of one is the hurt of all. The honor of one is the honor of all. The healing of one is the healing of all. These fundamental understandings about our oneness and the oneness of life, we need to be able to share it with his children from the very beginning of life, as soon as they can understand. Because in understanding this, then you really have a whole different perspective on once you do something to yourself or somebody else, how this is all interrelated. But if you have this idea that somehow I'm born alone, I'm going to, you know, to compete and achieve and to be the number one wolf on top of the rung ladder, and that's not going to work.
Thanks for that, Chief Phil. And if you could help with on some of our viewers, what it actually means to come back into remembrance. Like, there's a lot of tribes out there that I've worked with, and a common statement that comes out quite often is, we must remember.
Yes, yes. I'm going to put this in context. We'll go back to the remembering. My father used to tell me all the time, he said, son, he said, know where you're coming from. Know where you're coming from. Know where you're going. Know where you're going. No vision, no development. Developing people need a vision of possibility. Without a vision, the people perish. So that part's important. And he said, but he said, always, well, know who you're traveling with. Know where you're coming from, know where you're going, and know who you're traveling with. So we're the part of knowing where we're coming from. We all come from a cultural, spiritual, intergenerational background that we know has its pain and hurt, unresolved hurt and pain that we carry. And so it's about really remembering. It's about going back inside and letting go of all preconceived ideas, letting go of anything that will take us away from finding that truth. And that can be sometimes, we have to let go of hate, because hate can turn us away from that which is true. Hatred, at the same time, love that is not unconditional, love that's attached to certain material things or whatever that you know I'm attached to. Both of those can blind us from getting down to the truth. So this means also detaching ourselves, really detaching ourselves, and looking with independent investigation of truth. This is a creator's given gift we each have, to independently investigate truth for our own self, not through the eyes of others, not through the ears of others, not through the mouth of others, but our own. What is our understanding? And that's why I think that today it is a challenging time, because it's one of the great challenges is wanting to know the truth and not knowing where to find it. Not knowing where to find it. You want to find that truth. We can't find it. And that can only be found in our own heart, right here. In our mind and heart, it's all there. And we know that now there's genetic memory. You know, now that we're understanding we live in an epigenetic universe. Epigenetic meaning that we have those dimensions of ourselves that are passed on from biologically in our DNA from those who have been before, but we also are impacted by the environment. In fact, what happens to us in the environment can be more impactful than what's happening from the DNA that's passed on to us, or the biological potentialities we have. So I think that there's so many dimensions, Toshka, that question about remembering. And remembering includes, remembering and understanding even when we're birthed in this world, and understanding when we're birthed in this world, as I shared before, that each is a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, everlasting. That's so important. So there's so much to that, to looking back, remembering from whence we came, remembering we came from a spiritual world. We were born from the universal sea of consciousness, sacred place we're born. And I remember, I think this will maybe give some perspective to this. In my younger days, after I'd begun attending sun dances and going to various ceremonies and so forth, you can kind of get carried away with thinking, oh, I've done this, I've done that. So there's one grandmother who always gave me a hand to keep my feet grounded, to walk the spiritual path with practical feet. She said, Takusha, I said, I understand you've been doing all these different things. She said, what is the most sacred ceremony of all ceremonies? So I've been recounting all these ceremonies, sun dance and sweat lodge ceremonies and all the ceremonies I learned about. She listened very patiently, very lovingly. She said, Takusha, those are all wonderful ceremonies. But the most sacred, the most holy of all ceremonies is the birth of a child. And she looked in the eye and she said, and who are you? Who are you? We're sacred. We're sacred beings. We're born sacred. We're born pure. And of course, no, in saying that, we're also obviously carrying this intergenerational trauma to deal with, but the essence of who we are, the sacredness of who we are, is pure and holy. And really beyond any understanding we can even begin to attempt here on this physical plane of time and space, because it transcends this. It's just as difficult to understand those spiritual worlds beyond as it would be for a child in the mother's womb to understand the immensity of this world they're going to be born into. When you compare the limitations of the womb world, in which all of us were part of at one point in our growth and development into this world, compare it to what happened to us after we were given birth by our mother in this incredible world we live in, which we're still trying to discover. A lot of it is so immense, it's beyond understanding. Well, this world we live in here, we think so grand and great, is the same in comparison to the womb worlds, to this world, to the next worlds, the spirits of light. And, you know, so all of this is included in this question of remembering, you know, what our purpose is in this life. All that is part of the remembrance.
Yeah. Isn't it really interesting that we're all born from out of water? Like you just mentioned, in the embryonic stage, we're in the amniotic fluid.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I am, if I may share something or add
Please.
something, I think remembering is not really linear. Remembering comes through experiential occasions, and that is really where the true learning happens. And when we talk about remembering and water, it was only last week that I was sitting down and we were starting to eat, and I did a prayer over the food, and at some point within that prayer, I recognized that perhaps the water within the food is observing me the same way I'm observing the food. And so it was this aha moment, which was almost emotional, thinking, well, I'm 54 years old now. What took me 54 years to recognize that I'm not just observing the water, at the same time the water observes me? And if I take that into a bigger context, then we're all vessels of water. The trees, the plants, the animals, everything. So if I'm going to be able to observe the forest and the birds and the animals the same way, then I'm observing, at the same time I'm being observed. And that to me is the interconnectedness of life, and that is where we can find the creator within the water, really. But nobody can teach you that. If you go into a class in school and somebody says to you, find the connectedness or find the observer within the water that observes you, I don't think that works. So it comes, that remembrance comes in stages through our lives, and we learn whatever we need in any given moment.
Yes, yes, yes. I remember back in 1969, I was coaching and teaching at Walla Walla Community College in Walla Walla, Washington, and it was before I went off to Bolivia. And a dear grandfather of mine came to visit, Frank White Buffalo Man. He was the grandson of Sitting Bull. And he came and spent quite a time there visiting with my father and so forth. And this one day we went walking along behind my parents' home in Walla Walla. There's a beautiful stream that goes by. And so we started walking along the stream, and he asked me, he said, Takuja, he said, what is that? What are these trees and water saying to you? What are they saying? And of course, since he always said it was sacred, I said, they're sacred. He says, yes. He said, look at it. He said, look at the tree standing there. He said, the alder tree doesn't tell the pine tree to move over. The pine tree doesn't tell the fir tree to move over, or whatever trees happen to be around. They stand together with their mouth pressed towards the same breast of the same Mother Earth, with their arms upraised, praying, protecting one another. He said, the alder tree doesn't tell the pine tree to move over. The pine tree doesn't tell the fir tree to move over. They stand together in unity and harmony. He said, this is the way we're to be. And he said, look at that water in that stream. He said, pick up and feel it. See how gently, how tenderly it touches your hands. And yet, You can put that water in any size container. Small one, large one. And it's always itself. It's always itself. You know that water goes through deserts, through mountains, but it never turns it back on anybody or anything. It's always there to give its grace. But he says, you know, that water, though, has great patience, great strength. Even a mountain is its path. Whatever is in its path, it keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming. It'll find that mountain is washed away and is no more. That's the power of water. So it has all those qualities that it carries. It's also so dynamic. It's also, I think, water, as we know, is a tremendous symbol used by so many ceremonially. Always is water involved. Always you have water. It's like you always have a symbolism of earth or earth. There's a symbol of the earth in the ceremony, the reflection. Or the air through the incense. That's represented. And of course the water, earth. All those elements are represented in ceremony. And of course, it's represented in us. That's why there's such a reflection of this.
Is there a specific way that in your oral tradition to perhaps drink water? Can you talk about this? And what do you do to activate water, and if it even needs activation? Because once you're connected to it to the point where you actually recognize what it is, it doesn't need activation perhaps. But maybe you can you talk about that?
Sure. If we think about it this way, when we're eating something or drinking something, we're actually literally feeding a sacred fire. The fire, it's within us. And so you got to think about, what am I going to offer to that fire that creates life? And so, you know, that's why, in fact, it's a tradition in many cultures around the world, and many faith traditions. Before we eat, we pray. We give thanksgiving. Give thanksgiving. Thank you for this beloved water. We know also what we say around that water. The wonderful Dr. Emoto made it real clear that what we project into the water is what the water reflects back to us. The water is looking at us in a way, because it's going to reflect back exactly what it is that how we're looking at it, and what we have to say about it, how we feel about it. So I just say that you know, you have a prayer, but also whatever we're going to take inside of our being, you know, we should be able to put that in here. Now, that's not saying that every day we may remember this, because this is why remembering is so possible. If we wasn't needed to remember, it's because we forgot. We forget all these things. I'm not saying it, but just that thought, okay, next time when I sit down to eat, this next time, I'm going to give thanksgiving. I'm going to think about all those relatives who have nothing to eat today. They have no clean water to drink. They have no water to drink. And so I'm going to enjoy this gift from the Creator, this beautiful water, this beautiful food I've been given. And I'm going to feed my sacred fire within my being with only goodness, as best I can. So I would say that, you know, it's just respect. I think, by the way, I don't think it's just water. It's how we treat all things. If we have this relationship and we know that we're sacred beings and we're living in a sacred place, then it's about how we treat not just water, but how we treat life itself.
Absolutely. And, you know, you have the four elements working together. Fire, as you had mentioned, is I would say, like kind of like a catalyst that is very transformative. So when we transform even the state of water, whether it's liquid or solid, there's something that actually moves all of it all together. It's like one big massive symbiosis where even the earth moves with the assistance of water as well. It's something that I've only come into realization not too long ago when we got into, looking a lot closer of what water actually is and what it can do and what is possible. Just like Michael and I were talking about, when you look at a still lake and you look right into it, it reflects you back to yourself. It's interesting how that works. And depending on how the light refracts too. Go ahead, Michael.
And it reflects back differently than a mirror.
Yes.
There is a dimension to it that is almost unexplainable, but it is, you can feel the water holding an energy, and it reflects it back perfectly. I was standing in front of a puddle the other day after a huge rain, and it was crystal clear, or it was, the water was really flat, and there was no difference between the reality, what I perceive to be the reality of nature and that reflection within the water. It was exactly the same. And that's an interesting phenomenon, to feel the energy of that water, what it is that it is reflecting back to you, because it's more than just the visual. I think there is something unexplainable, perhaps, or in the non-material realm, or in the spiritual realm, or in the quantum physics realm, that happens in that connection.
Yes, yes. And it's so how do I say it? Well, it's so more than interesting. It's quite a miracle in a way, or a connection, that the ambionic fluid has the same salt content as the ocean. So that literally, from that huge ocean that was once upon the earth, we emerged from that ocean. Just as we emerged from the ocean of our mother's amniotic sac. That's how intimately connected. That's what I want to be able to say. It's all intimately connected. Everything in this universe. It may seem like it's vast, but yet on the other hand, it's one. Like Black Elk said, he said the center of the universe is everywhere. And of course, quantum physics and all this emerging from quantum physics into all kinds of even more in-depth scientific understanding is finally catching up with, by the way, the spiritual understanding. The spiritual understanding has been already that we're one. Now, finally, science is catching up to the spiritual understanding of those who have purified their hearts and minds and have been able to receive and see the guidance that is given to us in this covenant we have with the most beloved, our most beloved creator of all good things.
Speaking about technology, I know that that you have some devices, so you're working with technology to help water activate and to restructure water and to bring a different information, a different frequency into the water that goes beyond the chemical compound of H2O. And I know the Omni card that we're working with it is one of those devices. Can you speak a little bit about your experiences with that technology?
Yes, I would say that because of the Four Worlds Elder Health Program that I've just finished going through to you might say, know the experience other elders will have following my path, so to speak. We've been having the opportunity to encounter and all my life I've been interested in breakthroughs. But there are these new emerging technologies that have this capacity to just like we said, water reflects that which is around it, and so they're finding ways now to infuse water with qualities that enhance that water in a natural, good way, that then interacts with our body in ways that really brings our physical being and spiritual being into a higher frequency or vibration. And I think that this understanding they're now having, that really the biochemical medical model, while it's helpful at certain understandings, it's really now they're understanding energy. They're understanding, the impact of waves, you might say, our sound, which come in this sound. So that's part of the working with technologies. Now the other ones I think that we're looking at, one is a small, this goes beyond water, but a small device that I wear when I go out, and it drops any kind of particles, whatever the particles are, down to the ground 200 times faster than gravity. We can see that there's other technologies coming, I believe, that are going to transform the whole dominance of the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, this is a huge business. I mean, 20% of the gross national product in the United States is from healthcare. 20% of the entire money being made is around healthcare. Well, in order to make that money, you have to have people who are sick. Really, it's no different than if you look at the U.S. economy. It's based on war. When you combine the military costs and preparing for war, then the security you had to have to protect yourself because you're making war all the time, it comes to about $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion. And so when you have $1 trillion a year budget about war, you have to have an enemy. You can't have war without an enemy. And so we see all this false news. We don't even know who our enemies are anymore, but we got this enemy. We got to prepare, but do you need 800 military bases around Mother Earth? 800. Military, that's what we have. 800. The United States had 800 military bases. Why?
Yeah.
Can you imagine, with all those resources and the time and effort, when you redirect it to what's really important, how this world would be so different?
Exactly. You've got it. And that will happen. That is in the process of happening. This paradigm, this old paradigm, is rapidly breaking down. And as it breaks down, those our indigenous relatives and those who understand the oneness of all life, the oneness of human family, are breaking through everywhere. And that's what's so exciting in terms of looking. We can look at the challenges. We have many, but what's so exciting is that more than 50% of our human population are what I call the seventh generation, 35 and under. What's really exciting, there's never been so many human beings awakened at one time in human history. If you think about the coming of these great spiritual messengers that have influenced humanity over and over again throughout humanity, and many of them we don't even know about, there's never been this opportunity at this time where we not only have the awakening happening all over the world, we have the everywhere spirit, that the elders prophesied, the internet, which they prophesied in 1975. I was there when they shared this prophecy. We had no idea what they were talking about. But today we have now this growing capacity. And we are leaving this old, broken down, materialistic, colonialistic paradigm. Is breaking down everywhere. And with all due respect, we don't wish anything ill to anybody, but adversarial politics, false news, all the things we see occurring, the greater and greater concentration of economic and political power, which is happening so dramatically right now. This is not going to satisfy the growing, not only physical needs of our human family, but the spiritual need of our human family, to find oneness, to find unity, to find relationship with all members of our human family, and to transcend these foolishness of fighting over religion. In fact, it goes completely against the nature of the word religion, a Latin word that means to reunite, to bind together, to make one. And so anything, you know, that doesn't do that, they might call it religion. We're better without it, to be honest. That which divides us, that which makes enemies, so we can fight a war, this continual war that's going on. It's time to end, and it is ending. And I have faith that it's just like your efforts, wonderful efforts here on your Awakw TV network, and what we're discussing, you know, H2 Hope Live. This is what is happening. This is where people are turning their minds and souls and hearts towards this. And the sooner we do it, you know, like I said myself, I'm really decided. You know, I'm just not going to waste my energy watching all these divisive politics and things over here when I can spend time reflecting and doing things that are about oneness, about unity, about love, about kindness. And also, you know, going back, I'm really enjoying going back and reading and reflecting on all these spiritual teachings that have been given to humanity throughout the ages, from, you know, Krishna and the Mahabharata. So beautiful. Wow, what a incredible. It was an original text over 6,000 years old. But in it, those spiritual verities are just as alive there, those spiritual verities, as they are today. And as I see these messengers that come, we're coming to close one of the service, we see there's been messengers have come, spiritual messengers have come to guide us along our way. The spiritual teachings of all these messengers from the Creator are one: to be kind, to be compassionate, to be gentle, to be forgiving, to have courage, to stand up for what you believe in. All these spiritual qualities are one. Where they differ is in the different social teachings, which obviously have been given for a different time and a different place as we grow and evolve as human beings. But where are we now today? We're here where it's time, and we are unfolding a new global civilization, which cornerstone foundation is justice. Because when there's oneness, there has to be justice. Because all are one. Therefore, that organizing principle is justice. And it's happening. It's happening. So that's what we need. Those social teachings, how do we come together as a human family? How do we find governance? How do we seek governance? How do we ensure everybody participates in this process? But the technology, blockchain, all these different things are giving us the capacity to do this. So I want to leave this with this, put a bookmark here, and say it's always a pleasure to visit. Always a great pleasure. And continue this great work you're doing. Great work.
Thank you, and likewise. And we do it with a lot of love, you know. And then when we engage love in everything that we do, it doesn't feel like a job or work that I have to do. It feels like it's just a part of life that it just naturally is the way that one would think to live by, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, particular tenets.
Absolutely. I want to close.
Right thing.
Yes, if I may close, there's a prayer I say for myself several numbers of times during the day. I love this prayer. It goes like this: Aid me, O my Lord, to surrender myself wholly to thy will, and to arise and serve thee. For I cherish this earthly life for no other purpose than to encompass the tabernacle of thy revelation and the seat of thy glory. Howlemi chante washtealo, shukmano hemeyado, chinupasapahero, howlemi chante washte. So that's that. My dad used to say, said, you know, son, if you can't be happy today, what day are you waiting for? So let's have a good day.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Uncle Chief Phil Lane Jr. for joining us. Always a pleasure for you to, do the work that you're doing and to be able to share this time and space.
Thank you so
And for everyone who tuned in, thank you very much, and we'll see you again next week.
And if you want to learn more about what Chief Phil Lane Jr. is doing, go to our website, h2ope.live, and click on the link that we posted there. And if we can all support him in his work, what a transformational piece we would have. So thank you for joining us again. And
thank you. And thank you for our translator. We have a dear friend, Edda, from School of the Heart, to translating live into Spanish today. So it's wonderful. That's a nice little surprise for you, Uncle Phil.
Bien. Soy muy contento por eso.
Now you have to translate that into English for the people that don't speak Spanish.
I'm very, very thankful for this. When I went to Bolivia in 1970 through 73, I didn't speak a word of Spanish. I'd taken a couple of classes, but I didn't do so well. But when I went down there, I learned Spanish from our beloved Quechua and Aymara relatives. So it's wonderful to greet our relatives there. Los hermanos y hermanas del sur.
I'm just posting before I go off live. Edda was asking for the link. So I just posted our link, and get a hold of us anytime. And we'd love for you to learn more about Four Worlds International that Hereditary Chief Phil had come to put together for a long time ago. It's been about, over 50 years of work, culmination of work, and his indigenous teachings and remembrance into true reconciliation and healing for all.
Mm-hmm. Aho.
Uh-huh.
Aho.
Aho.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you.